The year was 1830. America, a young nation boasting of liberty and justice for all, committed an act of unparalleled betrayal against its native inhabitants. The Indian Removal Act, a stain on the fabric of American history, stands as a stark reminder of the fragility of rights and the seductive allure of power. This act, driven by greed and prejudice, resulted in the forced relocation of tens of thousands of Native Americans from their ancestral lands. It was a period of unimaginable suffering, a time when the very foundations of human decency crumbled under the weight of political ambition and racial prejudice. At the heart of this tragedy stood Andrew Jackson, the seventh President of the United States. Known for his fiery temper and unyielding resolve, Jackson was a complex figure in American history. A hero to many, Jackson embodied the spirit of westward expansion. He was celebrated as a champion of the common man, a defender of the frontier spirit. But his vision of a nation stretching from coast to coast came at a terrible price: the expulsion of Native Americans from their homes. This vision was not just a policy, but a deeply held belief. Jackson saw Native Americans as an obstacle, a barrier to the progress of white settlers. To him, their removal was a necessary step in the march of civilization. His unwavering belief in the superiority of the white man fueled his determination to remove Native Americans, by force if necessary, to lands west of the Mississippi River. This belief was rooted in a sense of manifest destiny. The Indian Removal Act was his weapon, a legal bludgeon to shatter the lives and dreams of countless innocent people. It was a law that sanctioned the forced migration of entire communities. Jackson disregarded treaties, ignored pleas for justice, and silenced any voice that dared challenge his vision. His actions were met with resistance, but he remained undeterred. He saw himself as a benevolent father figure guiding the Native Americans towards a better future. In his mind, he was offering them salvation. But his paternalism was a cruel illusion, masking a policy of ethnic cleansing that would forever scar the American conscience. The Trail of Tears remains a dark chapter in American history, a testament to the suffering inflicted by Jackson's policies. Among those who dared to resist Jackson's tyranny was John Ross, the principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. A man of remarkable resilience and unwavering courage, Ross dedicated his life to defending the rights of his people. He was not just a leader, but a symbol of hope and resistance for the Cherokee. He understood the grave danger posed by Jackson's removal policy, a policy that threatened to wipe out the Cherokee way of life. The stakes were incredibly high, and the future of an entire nation hung in the balance. Ross, fluent in English and well-versed in the intricacies of American law, chose the path of diplomacy and legal action. He believed that through the courts and Congress, justice could be achieved. He traveled to Washington, petitioning Congress and pleading with Jackson himself to reconsider the devastating policy. His efforts were tireless, and his determination unyielding. He argued that the Cherokee had adopted the ways of the white man, embracing education, agriculture, and even slavery. They had made significant strides in integrating these practices into their society. They had their own written constitution, their own newspaper, and their own system of government, modeled after the United States. These institutions were a testament to their adaptability and resilience. They were, by all measures, a civilized nation, deserving of the same rights and protections afforded to any other American citizen. Their fight was not just for survival, but for recognition and respect. The Cherokee Nation, under Ross's leadership, took their case to the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court of the United States. In a landmark ruling in the case of 1832, Chief Justice John Marshall sided with the Cherokee. He declared that the Cherokee Nation was a distinct political community with sovereign rights within its own territory. Marshall's ruling was a beacon of hope, a testament to the enduring power of the law. It seemed that justice had prevailed, that the Cherokee had won a resounding victory against the tyranny of the Jackson administration. But their hopes were short-lived. Jackson, enraged by the Supreme Court's decision, famously retorted, "John Marshall has made his decision. Now let him enforce it." With those words, Jackson effectively nullified the Supreme Court's ruling, choosing instead to side with the state of Georgia, which was eager to seize Cherokee land. The voice of expediency, Lewis, Cass, and the propaganda of removal. The Jackson administration found a willing accomplice in Lewis Cass, the Secretary of War. Cass was more than just a government official. He was a fervent believer in the doctrine of manifest destiny. Cass, a staunch advocate for westward expansion, became the chief architect and defender of the Indian removal policy. His vision of America was one of unbounded growth, where the nation's destiny was to stretch from coast to coast. A master of propaganda, Cass skillfully manipulated public opinion, painting a picture of Native Americans as savages, an impediment to the progress of civilization. He used every tool at his disposal, from speeches to newspaper articles, to spread his message. He argued that removal was not only necessary, but also beneficial for the Native Americans themselves, claiming that it would shield them from the corrupting influences of white society. This paternalistic view masked the true intent of his policies. Cass's words resonated with a public eager to believe in the righteousness of their nation's expansion. His rhetoric provided a comforting narrative that justified their desires for land and resources. He provided the moral justification for an inherently immoral act, transforming a blatant land grab into an act of humanitarian intervention. This narrative was crucial in gaining public support for the removal policies. Through his speeches, writings, and policies, Cass helped to create an environment where the forced expulsion of thousands of Native Americans could be seen as a necessary evil, even a righteous act. His influence was profound and lasting, shaping the course of American history. The Trail of Tears, a journey of despair. In the spring of 1838, the inevitable happened. The United States Army, under the command of General Winfield Scott, began the forced removal of the Cherokee people from their ancestral lands. Over 16,000 Cherokee men, women, and children were rounded up like cattle and herded into internment camps. Conditions in these camps were deplorable, with inadequate food, shelter, and medical care. Many died from disease and starvation, their pleas for mercy ignored. From these holding pens, they were forced to march westward, over 1,000 miles to the designated Indian Territory in present-day Oklahoma. This forced exodus, etched in history as the Trail of Tears, became a symbol of the cruelty and inhumanity of Indian removal. The unhealed wound, the enduring legacy of removal. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 and the subsequent Trail of Tears represent a dark chapter in American history. The forced removal of the Cherokee and other Native American tribes from their ancestral lands left an unhealed wound, a legacy of pain and injustice that continues to haunt the nation. The consequences of this act are still felt today, in the shattered remnants of once thriving cultures, in the poverty and despair that plague many Native American communities, and in the ongoing struggle for recognition and sovereignty. The story of the Indian Removal Act is a stark reminder of the human cost of prejudice, greed, and the abuse of power. It is a story that demands to be remembered, not to wallow in guilt or shame, but to learn from the mistakes of the past and to ensure that such atrocities are never repeated. If you enjoyed this journey to the past, consider subscribing. From our family here at Notorious Figures in History to yours, cheers!